Well, welcome back. I am so excited this evening as we continue our conversation of the power of art. We have some awesome guests here this evening. We are bringing back with us from the Gullah Geechee Mission, Damyan Shutdown, Elder Carly Town. She is a director, a community advocate. She works very hard to make sure we retain the culture of Gullah Geechee here and throughout the world, really. So I just want to give a big shout out for Elder Carly Town coming back to the show to share some more Bella Geechee love with us as well this evening. We're also bringing on to the show a very special artist for this evening. We have IVS in the house. Danny Ketchen is here. He is a young Romanian artist and is very talented, innovative individual creating spaces to empower his peers to embrace their unique selves and to be willing to share who they are and their truth. His talent is undeniable. He is bringing back truth, class, and style to the current hip hop scene. We also have with us this evening a partner of mine who works with me with the Up program and someone who is just phenomenal. He has done a lot of work from city to city. So I want to welcome to our show Dell Halbert. As I mentioned, he is a partner with me with the Up program. Daryl was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, and at an early age, Daryl showed a strong interest in art. He received his bachelor's in fine arts from the College of Art and Design, followed by his master's at Howard University. And since graduating from Howard, he has received several awards, completed public mural pieces, and started his organization PATH, Public Arts for Health and Stability. Now he is partnering with myself in Up, Unlocking Potential, and continues to create art and public pieces of artwork while living here in South Carolina. So welcome to the show, everybody. I'm so excited to have you here today. Well,
Thank you. Thank you very
yes,
much. It's an honor. Thank you.
thank you. Well, this show is something where we're going to have a real conversation. So this is going to be free flowing. We're also going to check out our comments that may come up in our social media. So anybody that wants to share something via Facebook or even here on YouTube, please feel free, and we will check in and try to answer your questions as soon as we can, especially in relevance to the conversation. Well, tonight we're going to kick it off with the power of art. What does that mean to you? And, how can art be used in our community to influence our community? Is it something that can really uh, influence change? So I'm going to start the conversation with you, Daryl. Can you tell me what does the power of art mean to you?
I think the power of art means to me as far as putting a voice with the actual community. I think that art could actually define a community. I think that art could actually uplift the community. I think that art can be that reasoning voice, that voice um, that shows what a community is made of, who the community is, and what the community can be. I think that's very much the power of art.
Absolutely. Thank you. And what is when it comes to art, I mentioned that you've done mural pieces, you've received a lot of awards, but what do you feel you tap into when it comes to your art form? What would you say is yours and how do you use it in the community?
Well, I feel with me, I would say, as far as being an artist, I fell in love with public pieces of art, and I was trained as, let's say, a portrait painter, trained as an artist who wanted to actually put work into galleries, put work into museums. But I think that is something that should be shared with the masses. Art should be something that should be viewed not by just someone going to a museum, but it should be a part of the community. And I think that when we look at art, art has a voice. Art should be something that should be shared, not should be privately owned, but something that should be shared with individuals and with the masses.
Absolutely. Thank you. I love how you said that art is a voice. I believe there's so many different art forms in this world, and it is a voice, especially for those who feel like they don't have one. There are a lot of cultures around this world where literally some people, like women, brown or black people, aren't allowed to use the power of their voice, their verbal voice. Some countries, women aren't even allowed to like look up or engage in conversation with people. So it's important for them to have an outlet, a way to express themselves, or somebody else, an artist like yourself or myself at Town IBS, to really capture a message that maybe they want to share, whether it's in a photograph or a painting, a poem, being that voice for the person that can't use their own. And it's a way I've seen a lot of times too. It's a way of healing, in my opinion as well. There are some people that have a hard time communicating. Maybe someone may be autistic and cannot verbalize themselves, but their thoughts are there. So maybe art is a way for them to use their voice as well. So I love that
Exactly. Is exactly. And
you're
art, like you say, is self-expression. How I'm feeling about a particular situation or a particular place may be different from you. So, we may have the same, we may be in the same place, but we may feel differently about that place. We may know a particular person, but we may feel differently about that person. And art, it let us define about how we feel about a particular person, place, or thing. So that's the power of art, right?
absolutely.
Self-expression.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, this is a free flowing conversation, so anybody can interject at any time and
Yeah,
share.
I agree about the voice, that art could be a voice, because I have my mentor, Mrs. Peggy Hartwell, she does quilts. And the name of her quilts is Voice on Quilt. And what she does is she goes to the schools and she teaches special need children. And she said it's such a joy to see them express themselves by, placing pieces on the quilt. And she said that's just a great way for people who are voiceless, really, physically voiceless, can actually do something to create and to encourage them and to empower them by allowing them to see what they have created. So I agree with the voice on cloth. And also, I think when we talk about voice, I think about theater, because that's what I do. I think about theater, and then I think about the voice of the Gullah Geechee when I think about voice. And I think that's a part of art, a part of theater that we have utilized to help Gullah Geechee people realize that they have a language, and it's not just, it's a language, matter of fact, to help them understand that they are bilingual. Because in the plays that I do, they speak English, they speak Gullah and Geechee. So when you said voice, it just brought out all kinds of creative ideas in my head.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's very, very, very much true. I love that you shared with theater, because it's such a powerful thing. I feel that one of the most universal languages is art. And
Yes,
whether it be art through painting or music, especially music, most people can understand music, even if you
yeah,
don't know the language. When you're looking at theater, the movements are
yeah.
something that can be translated as well. So I love that you also brought up that. Well, one thing I want us to definitely talk about is IBS is on here, and he is a local artist. He's a musician, speaking of music, and he is very, very talented. And I am actually going to take a quick moment and share his video. And then we're going to come back and talk to IBS a bit about this video and, what really motivated him to do this. This is his art form that we're going to be sharing right now. So I'm going to share my screen with everyone so that we can take a look at IVF. Thank you so much. Very exciting, very talented young man. All right, here we go. And you can follow him on YouTube as well.
I write the music myself. I don't need anyone's help. I feel like somebody else, and you wanna know how I felt. Just to be put on the shelf. You talking trash, but guess what? I'm fluent myself. I'm introducing myself. Nothing that you say that I didn't say to myself. Me introducing myself. Expecting somebody else. Time for wasting my time. If you not see it, I'll tear into your eyes. You take my advice, don't minimize. You talking lies, keep it aside. And don't got the time to waste. The story is mine to take. You say take time, but I don't got time to wait. The story is mine to make. Don't need to check to validate. Don't need the math to have my face. Just cause you laugh, don't mean that you late. I'm coming to bat. I hope you can take it. Hope that you make it. Stay motivated. Hope that you break the standards you raise. And hope that you real and never been fake. And nowadays, so people are faking. How do I say it? I'm on your playlist. You better play it. Music is lost and I'm here to save it. What a sensation. This in the cage. Don't care about your love. If I'm abandoned clearly. Don't got the patience there. I'm a minute away from going away and taking vacation. Nah, just getting started here. You gonna need a track to time me down. Better be a hacker to find me now. You gonna need a rapper, move faster, and a passion after match me now. Look for the world to watch rotate. I'm losing my mind, I'm feeling okay. Feel barely alive. Remember those days I'm stuck on the grind. Don't care what they say. Do my best work, I'm in health. Once you're done, then do it yourself. I do not care how we work out. This is how I am, I'm being myself. I was afraid to let it escape. I gave it a name, now it was to stay. I gave it a taste, I'm showing this face, and now it's never going away. I've been gone and found myself. Now I'm back and I'm at full health. Where they at when I'm not low health? Guess they go, they was at full stealth. Now I'm back and I'm at my best. That who's out with a tie be yes. You might pass, but I made that test. You might rap, but you just my guess. So the doubters and the haters know I got them like, oh, it sounds just sounding good. Now I think I'm on a roll. I give it all I got so that I can let you know I'm already the best. How much farther can I go? I'm showing you the real me before it ain't sure. I'm hoping that you'll feel me so I can give you more. I give it all I got so that I can let you know that this the only option that I can go for. A thing about the prophecy, I've chosen myself. Don't really gotta start with me, I told you myself that if you go apart from me, I'll put you on a shelf and put you with a part of me I never liked. Well, here I go again, best that's ever been. Kill myself, now I want revenge. Will it ever end? That depends. Guess you never been. Couldn't comprehend. That was then. Now you got a lens. Now I'm at a 10. But I've learned that it hurts and it burns. But I know that I've earned every second. And I'm wrecking all the verses that I'm on. Every lyric, every song that you hear it rap along. But you knew it all along, huh? I accept your regrets, then apart from the rest. Don't expect nothing less. At my worst, I'm the best. Guess who's next? Bella, I be yes. Scream it loud with your chest. Here and now, that's a yes. That's a yes.
Luxury beat. Yes.
Thank
All
you.
right, I see. Yes. We see you. We
Very
see
good.
you.
Very good.
I really
It was
appreciate it.
great.
So yes, please say welcome again to the show. I just love that video. Please tell us about that video. Like, what is it about? What drove you to do that?
See, that's the funny thing about the art and everything. Like, I think y'all literally hit it right on the nose how art defines you and your voice. Because, like, how it all started was I used to rap about and do songs about things that were popular, things that were in, things that were now, and then nothing would really work out with it. And then one day I was just in emotions, actually decided to rap about what I feel one time. And then it ended up being that exactly what it was. And it turned out to be amazing. Just helped me feel better. I wanted to like have other people be able to express themselves like that, and like maybe they can relate, because I know for me, just as a person, like expressing myself like to anyone or anything, or even sometimes admitting to myself some stuff, I I just couldn't do that. It wasn't really registering. I was not very good at it. But when I actually put it in my music, everything I was feeling, everything I was thinking, it just fit perfectly, and I could express myself in ways that I never could throughout my whole life.
Wow, that's awesome. I love the fact that you did it not only for yourself, but you did it for others as well. But something I think people need to understand with art, with anything that you do, we have this habit of thinking that if we take a moment for ourselves, that we're being selfish. But someone shared with me recently, and I'm really been taking this in now, is that self care is not selfish. So the fact that you use your music, your art form to really express yourself and get out thoughts and emotions and things that you wanted to express but couldn't really put into words without that music, I think is wonderful because that was your form of self care in a sense as well. And the fact that you gave yourself permission to do that helps empower others to give themselves permission to do the same. You know, I think like last time we talked a lot about how even in our school system, art is being removed from our school systems and so many outlets that our children need. And we don't sit back and take a moment to really sit there and take the time and go, wait a minute, well, look at how our crime rate might have increased in our community. Look at how many dropouts
Mhm.
increased, how many suicides increased, how many imprisonments have increased after we simply remove the outlets. If you have no place to put all this energy and things that are bottled up inside, it's going to come out one way or another.
Yes,
Or you do it
Exactly.
consciously or unconsciously. So I
right.
love to use your music to do that. And you were okay. You were transparent. And I think that's important for people to understand is that self care is not selfish and
I
it's
agree.
necessary.
It's
And
very
whatever you
true.
use to do it, art can be a powerful tool in order to do that. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm glad that you did it. And look at this. I mean, man, this guy now has over 29,000 followers, and I'm like, I'm trying to get on his
I
level, okay?
know, right.
You know, and
That is,
I was like checking you out on YouTube, Ivy, and yes, he's my cousin, yeah, yeah, but he's talented, and I wanted to share that because there's new artists that are trying to figure out, what do I do next. You put yourself out there, but then I noticed as I was on YouTube that you also put in some work, and you reached out to critics on YouTube that have a lot of followers and asked them to actually react to your video, and they gave their honest truth. And I love the fact that you put yourself out there. You took a risk, but it was
hmm
it was worth it because in the end, people there was success behind it, and I'm sure there were lessons that you can take too from what they shared. But I think that's awesome that we understand that just as much as art is free, but there's also work behind it depending on what your intentions are as well. And
exactly.
using that motivation, that self care, those things as an outlet definitely empower you and others. So kudos to you, IBS. Thank you so much for
Yes,
sharing.
yes.
Thank you so much.
And one day when I grow up to be like you, I'm gonna get I'm gonna get on your Oprah status and have a bunch of followers too. And when I finish rapping, well, what I'll do is I'll write the rhymes and then you can rap because my rap, I know my limits. Okay, so a little bit, but just a little bit. So
Yeah.
um, I think it's awesome too that you use that voice. Like when it comes to your beats and things, like how does that work for you when it comes to your musicality?
You said when it comes to the music, like the beats,
Yeah, how do you like? What does it take to create a song like that?
uh, to create a following or the beats. Sorry, the connection is kind of breaking.
That's okay. The beat, yeah, your song in general.
Oh yes, I just pretty much find beats on YouTube, and then if I feel it, I feel it. If I don't, I just move on. Usually, just pretty instant. If I can feel it, words will start rushing. Uh, and it's pretty much just like that.
Hmm. Okay, awesome. So would you say, in a sense, when you're talking about expressing yourself in this way through music, it kind of reminds me of journaling. Would you say that'd be a fair comparison as a way for people to share their thoughts or feelings through journaling? It's also music in a sense is your form of journaling.
Oh, definitely, exactly like that. That's literally why I called the first album "Diary." That was the intro to it. That was just out, and
Awesome.
yeah, that's pretty much why it was called Diary. I always see my dad always said I needed a diary and all that, and I didn't really believe it because I tried it and then like tried actual diaries, tried like mobile diaries, notes, all that stuff, and then like that didn't really work, didn't really help anything, and then like I just needed the music and my lyrics as a diary and put it there, and then it turned out to be one of the best decisions of my life.
Awesome. Wow. I love that. So would you recommend that for people that may be having a hard time, maybe even if they're not intending to write a song per se, but if they're having a hard time and they want to journal or get something out, that music can be, in a sense, their form of journaling. They can use that to help motivate them.
Yeah, I'd say do it. Like like whatever makes you happy or whatever makes you feel like more comfortable with doing it, just try it. If it doesn't work out, try it again. Yeah, it took a while for me to be able to do anything with it.
Thank you. Well, I commend you. It's certainly brave, and it's paying off. I hope you continue to do it. What's next for you, Idea?
Well, the album should be coming out sometime this year for the rest of it. One of the good parts about it is each song gets a lot better than the last. It's like not even like comparable, and it's not like a gimmick or like anything like that with it getting better or just the promotion. Each song is better than the last. It's that like it's when I actually started rapping about how I feel, and you can actually just see me getting better. You can hear it getting better because that's exactly the progression that it was having. Each song is in order of when I wrote the songs. Like it's not in a particular order like that. It's just in when I wrote the songs, and then I put them each, release them each at that time period.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Well, I'm excited for the next. I'm definitely looking forward to hearing your next song. So, and it looks like we can follow you on like Instagram. Is that right?
Yes, on
Mhm.
Catchin IV, KETCHEN IV.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. So again, that was Catchin IV. You can follow him at Catchin IV on Instagram. You can also find him on Facebook, YouTube. YouTube is a great resource to check out his video, the work that he's already put in, and what's next. He's planning on dropping his album out sometime this year, so be on the lookout for IVS. And as you mentioned, each song that item on the album is just getting better and better. So that one was that good. I don't know what's up. Now you got the bar is already up here.
Well, like in the song,
So,
like I said, I hope you reach all of them you're making.
well, thank you, and again, kudos to you. And I love the fact that you're giving permission for people to really express themselves freely and to use music as an outlet. It's their journal, essentially. So thank you. Um,
Thank you so much
Very
for having me.
good.
Absolutely. Well, I know also joining us here on the show, we've got Jay Maroon. Jay Maroon is also a DJ, community advocate. He's done a lot in these streets, y'all. I'm telling you. Very powerful young man, and I'm really excited to have him here on the show as well and to join our conversation about the power of art, what it means to you, and how you use it. Um, I want to switch gears a little bit and, kind of put it out there right now about community and art and Elder Carlton, you mentioned theater, and I think it's a very powerful way to address a lot of things and have a lot of uncomfortable conversations like politics, religion, culture in general. Um, I think it's really interesting because you can use theater to do those things unapologetically. Heck, I did the vagina monologues, so it
I know.
it
I
gives
know. Yes.
you got to come out of your shell sometimes. But
Yes.
I think
Definitely.
it's wonderful you create a safe space for people to express themselves and to highlight their culture and community. And like right now, I think it's important for us to talk about how things like our artistic form is screaming out about issues that are taking place in our community, especially for our Black and Brown populations. We see everywhere now. There's some tag somewhere that says Black Lives Matter or Black Lives Still Matter. We see things about Blue Lives Matter. We see things all over in so many different outlets, but it's bringing light to a lot of issues that continue to exist in our communities, even predating, the civil rights movement taking place since slavery and even times before that. And people are sitting on the edge of their seats, especially right now in the middle of this election, because, I've said it before, it was important for us to vote like our lives depend on it because they really do. Our nation is in such up in arms right now in such a peril that I don't know what everything that's going to take to really fix it or if it can, be fixed per se. I know it's definitely going to take time, but I think art can be used as a tool to help us in the engaging the issues, to maybe even having conversations, like I mentioned, to get uncomfortable so we can get to a place of comfort. But what are your thoughts? And this is for everybody. What are your thoughts about how we can use art as a tool to address some of the issues? What are some of those issues that need to be addressed?
Well, one of the issues that I particularly have great interest is in land loss in Gullah Geechee communities. So I have done some plays about that and tried to educate people on the reason why we should try to hold on to the land. And it has worked, but I think we need to have more theater and more awareness about land ownership and the importance of it, keeping it, especially where in these marginalized community where gentrification takes place. I really believe that if we um, let people know the value of what they already have, they can actually renovate too, as well as they can restore and renovate. But a lot of times, because we live in a society, a throwaway society, we want to throw everything away and get something new. But those new things are sometimes taking away our history. So I believe that if we do more artistic things put more, like you said, murals up, do more plays about that, I think that would even heighten the awareness of what we do have and value what we have. I mean, and put some emphasis on it, because sometimes people just don't feel like they have anything, because some people just need to hear it. Again, back to the voice. And some people just haven't heard that, hey, your community it's valuable. And the only
Exactly.
time they realize it's valuable is when somebody else comes in and build another big house and tax them out. And then they be like, oh, they came and took. No, we have to take charge of our community. And I think theater is a good way to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
I really like what you said about that. That's a very excellent point because we talk about a voice, and one of the voice is that we're in election year, and voting is a voice to go out and vote. And that's the one thing that I think that the arts could bring about is educating people, because people look there. A lot of people are visual learners, and
Mm-hmm.
for me, through the visual arts, people, when they see imagery could be very, very powerful, very, very powerful. And when someone sees something, it could enlighten them. It could make them think differently. It can make them feel differently. And I just think that through the arts, no matter if it's visual, no matter if it's music, um, it could have a lasting effect on individuals. And I'm an art teacher, and it's amazing how, when I look at education, so many parents talk about how they want their children to be creative, how to be innovative. What do you think the arts are teaching us? To be creative and to be innovative. So I just think that the arts could be used as an educational tool, and especially it could be used as an you can integrate it as being that tool to integrate to educate. So I think that the arts could play a very powerful part in that, as far as education.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. I've definitely got something to add on this. On top of those accurate points. But to me, like white supremacy, in particular, like I don't know, just a bit. I mean, even if you just think of the word white supremacy and like, I don't know. I was talking to you about this the other day on the stage about whiteness and like just the creation of that term, that that was like a conscious act, right? And so white supremacy, like if you think about like white is the absence of is am I being correct in this? The absence of many colors. I'm making sure I'm using this is a good metaphor, but I'm trying to think of like the color palette or whatever. But the white is like the absence of of most colors anyway. Is that correct? Or
Absolutely. Mhm.
huh? Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So I mean, the point I'm trying to get at is that white, like white, one of the things white supremacy, and I'm going back in his story, but you go back and chattel slavery and all of that. It's basically like canceling culture. Canceling culture to the point of culture being something, being a expression of the community, to instead be narrowed down to just each individual and what their own personal, I don't even want to call it culture, but their own, everyone just, out for themselves and not thinking for the other, for lack of better term at the point, but at this point for that, but basically a whitewashing of culture, so that means art, culture, things that, that as a community we congregate around, I guess, and we celebrate, or and or like nurture and care for each other, just like all of these things, and the creativeness that goes into that, and so yeah, I wrote down a couple points, but yeah, uh so yeah, I mean, the stripping of culture to the point that art just become, or like, a lot of representations of art just become propaganda. You know what I mean? Like instead of like an actual, like an actual voice from the soul, it just becomes
Mm-hmm.
like propaganda from some source of corrupted power, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak. And then, so I mean, like, and I agree that like, you know, like it's always like, crazy. I mean, people, like, especially living abroad, and in a place that has pretty high representation in voting or whatever. A lot of people, are always like, how low a percentage it is in the U.S. And I mean, to some degree, I mean, I understand the disenfranchisement. I mean, like, yes, like with what's going on with the election now, just like talking about the creativity and what art can bring. Biden's campaign, like, did not bring any creativity. I mean, I voted for Biden just because of that, of the same of the fact that he's not Trump. But for everybody, that's not enough. Like, that you have to have some substance normally behind your. So I mean, I think that there was also a lack of creativity from the Democratic perspective, but the Democratic perspective is also like using propaganda, but like even inverted propaganda, with to where they don't promote the the kind of issues as well as the Republicans do, in a creative or artistic way. And I mean, and that doesn't rely on them, and that relies on us. But and my final point is that is that art is equal to politics, and that vote is like the bare minimum of what we should be doing. It's like the bare minimum of interjecting into politics. That is our bare minimum power. And then, like, the art and culture that we bring, I guess, the rest of the 4 years, or the rest of every year, is what is the tipping needed to push that tipping point, if that makes sense. But yeah,
Yes,
I hope that was.
it does.
I love how you said that. It definitely uses to push a tip and board. I do want to continue this conversation. Before we do, IVS does have to go, and I just wanted to say a big thank you and shout out for IVS. Please follow him at Catching IV on Instagram and check out his video, which I'll play again at the end of the show. So please stay on so you can see that video. But thank you so much, IVS. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You have a wonderful evening. We'll be in touch and we'll definitely check you out.
All right, y'all too. Great meeting everyone.
All right,
Thank
peace
you.
and
Same
blessings.
here.
I want to go back to
Right.
what you were saying, Jade. I love the fact that there were a couple of things that you mentioned. One, you in the spirit of transparency, shared about this white elephant in the room, literally, of white supremacy that invades our world, our culture, and is very strong here in the United States.
Mhm.
As people notice, even on the blog here for the Power of Art, a lot of times when I say our country, I put it in quotes, our country, because the reality is it doesn't really officially belong to many of us, especially our Black and brown people. We're not treated as if we're supposed to be in a space, even though it might have been built on our back. Well, it was built on our back, but we're not a part of what is supposed to be considered, what they consider the majority. We're not in the elite society. When in fact the culture that exists around us is that of our own. And then you mentioned how the vote was the bare minimum. I didn't think about it that way, but I love how you put that because yes, voting is so important. The power of your voice right here, right now, is important because it addresses things like other colleagues brought up earlier. Other colleagues mentioned gentrification. You know, the people that are in positions of power that can influence and impact things like gentrification, we got to vote them in. And it starts not just in our presidency, but on our state levels. We've got to
Yes.
vote in our state elections, and they don't happen just once a year, every 4 years. We got to pay attention when they come up. Know who's on our board of education. If our board of education if we have been at the bottom of the list for so many years, then our board is failing us, and those seats need to be replaced. We need other people in positions of power that may share the same creative energy that we do. You know, and to vote them is only one step. But for the remainder of their term, we got to continue to speak up. We still got to use the power of our voices, our artistic creativity to share the issues and make sure that they don't forget why we put them in those positions of power. You know, we keep saying that there's these political people, but the reality is that every decision they make is influenced by us. We have to speak up, and no matter what, the individual voice is stronger when there's many individual voices, and we become a
Yes.
collective voice.
Mhm.
And collectively, no matter what, they cannot ignore our existence. We are here. We're present. You
Mhm.
can't ignore all of us. You know, you might have been
Exactly.
blind eye to a couple of us, but when you got hundreds and thousands of people standing here staring you in the face, talking about the same issues and using our same creative voices and energy, that's powerful. So we got to use that
It is.
power, no matter how you choose to do that. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate the fact that you went right in there, you know. White supremacy,
Yeah.
it's existed for a long time. Let's stop ignoring it. Let's call it what it is.
I was a little bit late, so I felt like I needed to go straight into straight into the meat. Since
That's good. That's really good.
All right. You know, what are some
I
other
thought you
thoughts?
might have already gotten there. No.
Oh no, you brought it there. I love it when you got
Yeah.
the nail on the
Yeah.
head.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing that you all talked about that. And I think you said you wanted to know about why we should elect politicians, you know, especially the ones that are home that's right around the local politician. And it's important because the local politician, they have their hands on the pulse of the people. And like you said, then we need to influence them to make sure that the people get what they need. You know, I'm a nonprofit organization, and I don't know how many local politicians know about the Gullah Changing Network. Part of that could be my fault, but part of that is nobody really, say, oh, well, you're doing this, Anastasia's doing this. Well, we need to see what we can do. Most of the time, it's not that way. And I don't, like I said, it could be some way that I'm not delivering what I need to deliver to them. And maybe that's what I need to do. But I'm one to work. And I figure if you see the work that's being done, you know it will take some resources to take the work on to the next, level. Why don't you say, okay, we have a program that you probably can. I very seldom hear that from the local, from any politician, but I'm praying that this changes because I believe that things change. I believe that we make the change, and so I am looking forward to more resources to the marginalized communities because, they're the ones that really need it. Not I'm not saying they shouldn't give it to those people who have a big tax base, but you got to think about all of the people, not just a certain segment of it.
Absolutely. I definitely agree, and I think that you and Jake both hit on some very, very important points. In a sense, this is my opinion, I feel that politics almost strips away the humanity of the individual. So we get so caught up in that one word Jay mentioned earlier was the propaganda, and people like Biden, for example, it became, the presidential election became, okay, which lesser of the two evils are we going to use or we want in office versus, well, who is remembering who we are in our humanity? Who's fighting for us? Who's putting forth the effort? Because there was not very much effort put up on anybody, whether it's the presidential or the local politician. It seemed like people said what they thought you wanted to hear. There were so many blank campaigns where it was like, well, we're going to focus on saving the water and the animals. Okay, well, how you want to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, nobody really focused a lot on education. A few people focused on things like gun sense control and things, but we really didn't get to the meat of the issues in the community. They didn't talk about gentrification. They didn't talk about, how because the elite, the money keeps going to the top, how it's affecting and disrupting the lives of the people at the bottom, how people are being pushed out of their very homes and into the streets, and there's not resources for them, how our homeless shelters are filled, but yet there's so many people in our streets and not enough food, enough places, enough shelter. The bus is all jacked up. They were just saying blank stuff, to get out.
Right.
But not.
I've got a little analysis on that too. That I've actually, I mean, some actually a show I was, news, like I listen a lot to Democracy Now, and they were like, talking a little bit about like some analysis of like the local, because they were talking about the down ballot, the down ballot elections, and we did, or like, the Democrats did better or worse down ballot than they were supposed to, or predicted to. But a lot of that again has to do with the lack of to me, it has to do a lot with the one, a kind of a branch of the root problem, I guess, is that there was, this election was for the Democrats, or at least for the presidential candidacy. It had nothing to do about issues. That there was hardly I hardly ever heard talk about issues, except for maybe he's more for healthcare, but it's Donald Trump saying that too. He's not, even though
Donald Trump said that this week, and then next week he's gonna say, nah.
Yeah. But the main thing that one of the main things is that I see, I don't know, some show I was listening to earlier today was saying, like, the Democrats are scared of power, which I disagree with that a little bit. Yeah, because they were saying that they're that maybe incompetent in some cases, or scared to have total power, and I disagree with. I kind of disagree with that analysis. I think they love the power, and that the Democrats. The reason why the Democrats aren't like the Republicans, for example, is because they're very close to similar. They're not the same. The Democrat. I mean, it is a noticeable difference in people's lives if Trump's president or Biden, in my opinion, but it's like, in the long, what do they call it? The long haul, or the long game, or whatever they want to call it. That they're almost diametrically the same. There's just like a few, a few things that are big things in the day to day, but they have the same donors. They are pretty much the same donors, similar donors. Big companies, either big pharma or whatever it is, and they don't want to lose that power, and they know, that probably like the left is getting younger, or like, this and this and this, or but they're that they are they are pretty much the this as conservative as the Republicans basically, or like as draconian or whatever you want to call it as the Republican Party, and so there's no incentive. And when I say incentive, there's no incentive. There would be incentive from the people, but there's no monetary. And that was sorry, that was one thing I was going to say with the whole first part of the white supremacy thing and the whitewashing of culture, is that capitalism was also refined. And I mean, because if you go back into history, like before, I mean, during the settlement of the U.S., I mean, in Europe, feudalism had been like refined into capitalism, right? And then it was like refined completely and into the modern form in during chattel slavery. So like, I mean, basically this whole I don't even want to call it ideology or whatever, but kind of like this Ayn Rand ideology and the Chicago School of Capitalism and all of this. It was built off the backs of slavery, of chattel slavery. So like, Africans built this, were the contract, were the workers that built their system, and so like they don't want to, they don't diametrically want to change that, basically.
I wanted to pull out what you said. Mm-hmm. The word is one of the words that stuck out to me was capitalism. and I think about your connection to propaganda earlier, and I think it's very interesting because when we're talking about the power of art and how it's used, if we don't use our power of art, imagine if people that like the advertisers, the propaganda that is actually being out there that's using, people are studying and know what to put out musically or visually to engage an audience and capture their attention and influence their thought process. Think about the fact, for example, Black Lives Matter. How everybody is now all of a sudden using that as propaganda, using that to profit off. I mean, when you turn on Hulu or Netflix now, they all of a sudden got a black section. They got the Black Lives Matter, and they got a whole video and movie lineup, and it was like, wait a minute, it wasn't there yesterday. Why is it there now? And
it was again, like that with Black Panther too.
See, exactly.
The movie.
What I understand is that as we see and turn into those things, we start desensitizing ourselves, forgetting about the root issues that we're fighting for and why those things even came about in the first place. But again, when it comes to capitalism and propaganda, they're using those things to their benefit. And then people in the positions of power start buying and paying into these things, like you mentioned, big pharma and those donors and things. Think about it this way. I can flip it this way. When we think about our educational system, how it's really a school or prison pipeline system, when we think about who is actually, funding the prison system, you'll realize that a lot of these places are still the same exact people. Some of the major companies that actually fund our prison system are the very same ones that also create our SAT book, our study guide. Do you realize that brands, one of the most popular brands, are the biggest funders in the prison system? But we forget about those things and don't make those connections. And we're sitting here like, wait a minute, our children are actually using these systems where we're focused. The standardized testing is horrible, yes, and it's nothing but a funneling system that contributes to the school, to the prison pipeline system. But we forget about where it's coming from, who created these things, who designed it, who they for, and then we'll turn around and somebody will make like a T-shirt or something, and we get so distracted by it, by that art, by that commercial, by that advertisement, that we forget, wait a minute, who's standing behind the person and directing and guiding these things that are taking place? That T-shirt is cool. I didn't see that movie before on Hulu or whatever. I'm so glad. Denzel. Wait a minute now. Denzel had a place on here yesterday. Why are you here today?
I agree 100%. say that when you was talking, I was thinking about politicians, but then I thought about some of the things that we're doing. Like Queen Quet is educating people by way of Gullah Geechee art. Like yours doing the Sweetgrass Basket. Like I'm doing theater, and the brother's doing murals and teaching. And then there's Jason DJing. We have to amplify those voices. We have to amplify those people and those voices who have like minds, because this is a system, it's been here, and I don't know if it's going anywhere else. So we have to create, which if you see something that's not there, you need to create it. So I believe that we just need to amplify what we are doing and teach more people about what we're doing, because this is a way, the same way these big corporations started out, they just imagine it and it happened. The United States was just imagined by some men and it happened. We have to have that same kind of imagination and make it happen. That's my
And
take.
a word that you're saying repeatedly, and I think that we have to get back to is we.
Yeah.
We
That's
forget
true.
about it now. We, us, we. Because think about it, like in Georgia right now, some of the things that are taking place, people are creating their own system. And like
Yes.
there's 19 families that purchased several acres of land to build a safe community for Black and brown individuals. That same system can be put into place in every single state if we chose to do it. And I think because we're so taken back by the money, because money drives so much, but think about it, our creativity is what funds so much of that. Because our culture is continuously appropriated, we start losing ourselves and don't understand who we are. So many people don't even that are right from don't even consider themselves Gullah Geechee, but what they don't understand
Thank you.
is what you
That's
identify
right.
as, but it's about what's in your bloodline. Gullah Geechee ain't everybody just because there's connection. We are direct descendants of our African
Yes.
ancestors, and we continue to practice most of our African traditions right here in the Gullah Geechee corridor. But because people have been whitewashed, as Jade mentioned several times, because people have been whitewashed, because people have been desensitized, because we have been stripped away of our creativity, our creative essence, we've forgotten who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
if
And
we don't get back to that, what system can we gotta first get back to we, and then gotta get back into our systematic practice in our home,
right.
in our house,
Right.
in our
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
that's one thing too about like the effect. I feel like the effect of capitalism, because like you said earlier, Carly, that some white men basically sat in some rooms or rooms or whatever you want to say, and just came up with the first plans of and of the of the what transpired into today, basically the colonization and this and the draconian enslavement and like all of these things. And I mean, and like we just, but like you said, we need to have the imagination, but the imagination, like y'all are saying, of we instead of like and and I think that's a contradiction of what I don't know. I think something that the right is able to brand into people sometimes is that you can't be an individual in their collective vision or whatever, and that's
Yeah.
and that's, and
Yeah.
that's absolutely not. That's absolutely diametrically, different than what I mean. Opposite of what they're saying. I mean, individual in this terminology is that you just take for yourself, and there is no culture or creativity in that. It's just like it's all.
It's
It's nothing
competition.
to do with
It's
the
no
soul.
creativity. It's just competition.
Yeah, it's just competition, and that is that is the bare minimum of of like of the body of of this capitalist culture and this like uh all for me kind of scenario. And so yeah, I think to that it's important. And I think like like this 6%. What was it? What was the percentage they said last night or today? Like how many of the uh, black and brown communities went went a percent, percentage to Trump and stuff, and some of this can be faulted to these like Brexit stuff and all that or whatever. But I think a lot of the blame also should go on the on this like conservative Democrat Party, and also to the idea that a lot of people are that maybe a lot of the people that chose this route for whatever reason, like they probably, I mean, I'm guessing, I don't want to put any words in anybody's mouth, but I'm guessing a lot of people have felt disenfranchisement from, and the only two things that they see is Republican and Democrat, especially if, I don't know, if you're not engaged, like if you're not engaged in in culture or politics, or I don't know, like, you know what I mean, that you're not
I think you're pulling out a very important thing, and we do have about 4 minutes left in the show. I want to kind of wrap up a little bit, but I wanted to share something very important: is that lack of education. And it starts at our baseline, because we can look at all our political parties, we can fault the people up top, we can fault ourselves, but the reality is, if we don't start our baseline and start focusing more and understanding those life skills and the things that help us make these decisions, and the things that help us formulate our opinions and how we choose. Because when we think about things even on a cognitive level, cognitive behavioral therapy will tell you that we make decisions based on our experiences and beliefs. So
that's exactly right.
At home.
That's very true.
If we don't form it there, then what are we going to do? If our children don't know who we are, or understand what self looks like, then how can we expect them to make any rational decision when it comes to politics? One thing I wanted to share with you all real quick is I wanted to go into a image. So we actually made some history a few years ago. Daryl, I wanted to point out how at New Angel Christian School here downtown Charleston, we actually created a mural project. And oh my goodness,
beautiful.
I don't know if you remember, but I remember people coming up to us in the neighborhood, and they were actually talking about how they were just shocked and applauded the youth for coming out here and taking their time and investing in the community. Some of them said they even forgot a church was even there. Now they might actually go in, and others forget about the resources that a church may, provide. And it was also very interesting because this space gave light, again, back to topics such as gentrification. Because as you notice in this image here, there is a beautiful house, a couple of houses right there next to the church. There is a home falling down where a woman, elderly woman, was sitting on the porch, and the mailman would even go on the porch because it was clearly unsafe to give her her mail, And across the street, it was like night and day. There was obvious gentrification. There was a couple people riding around their Maseratis and stuff in their spaces, and then the house next to them was nearly condemned. So to take the time to place murals in the community after talking to and investing and figure out what we wanted to, deliver what message, we can use art as a tool in this way as well to really help shed light on some things. And Charleston, when it comes to art, everything is temporary. So the fact that after 3 years our art is still standing is very important. And these young individuals that took the time every Saturday over the summer to come out, they invested in their community, learned what it meant, and they got to feel and experience firsthand what the impact of them and the message that they had to deliver really did for the community. So thank you so much for that investment. I also want to kind of, thank you. Bring us back here to, again, if you want to find out more information, want to learn a little bit more about our guests, you can always come and visit us at togetherweshall.com and check out the Power of Our blog. That's where our information will be found at. You'll learn about our guests and where you can follow him at, and all of our individuals. I wanted to share with you, so as we got into this conversation, our real talk, our topic was just about how our country is in a state of urgency. Change is not an option. Our leadership decides the fate of the masses, and we have to take the power of that back. Here's a thought for you that I did want to leave you with this evening as we're going and we're closing out. And this can also, again, be found here at togetherweshall.com. I'm not impressed by money, social status, or job titles. I'm impressed by the way someone treats other human beings. And in a sense, I think that's a big, heavy portion of our content and what we're sharing this evening is that we got to get back to our humanity, everybody. We got to get back treating people how we want to be treated.
Yeah.
When you go on togetherweshall.com, you can also check out some of our artwork and check out our store. We have a store right here, and a lot of it shares I love to put our Gullah Geechee information here and share our family history of sweetgrass baskets. So for me, it's not about propaganda, but it's about a conversation starter. Somebody might look at this and never have seen a sweetgrass basket before in their life. By the way, I'm wearing one of my shirts today. Yes, I've got one here. But if you come online and check it out, not only are you being support, but it's also a way for us to educate and start a conversation and talk about what it is and what this means to be Gullah Geechee. And I think that we can definitely, in essence, share a lot of our conversations. So it's definitely a conversation starter. So sometimes we got to meet people where they are.
Yes.
And get them, and really, if it starts with a T-shirt versus a painting, or it starts with a T-shirt versus a play, then that's one way to get them to those things, so that we can really open up their minds, their hearts, and their eyes. I wanted to say a big shout out to each one of you, the Colleytown, Dower, Halbert, IBS, Jade, Maroon. Thank you so much for joining us. I'd love to get you all back on another time. Please, you can definitely check individuals out. Thank you. You can follow them on Facebook, Instagram, the Twitters, Oatmeal Crystal, Propaganda, Pop Poets, I don't know, everything. But you can also go right on if you ever want to follow them and figure out, well, where do I go to connect? Or I don't remember the name. Please visit togetherweshall.com. Again, that's togetherweshall.com. Your information is posted there. You'll find all of our artists that we introduce and our guests that we interview throughout the week. We're here each Wednesday at 7 p.m. You can come on out, and those who want to learn more about the Gullah Geechee culture, especially those who are here in the Gullah Geechee corridor who are of Gullah Geechee descent, as Elder Colleytown always say, remember, rich with a Gullah Geechee. So
that's great.
Yes, and if you want to know and you don't know, you're unsure, visit the Gullah Geechee Angel Network.com. You can go there as well and learn some more about the culture, even if you're just curious. Big shout out to IBS. We're going to close out this show this evening with his video. If you missed it earlier, take a moment, 3 minutes long. You can follow him on YouTube and at IV on Instagram. So again, I just want to say thank you all so much for joining us. For all our listening ears.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us, for having me and all of us.
Absolutely. Well, here you go.
And it was a pleasure to be on with the cohort that I'm with.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jason. Thank everybody. Thank everybody.
Absolutely
wonderful.
I was wanting to know, can I tie, like I meant to tie everything I was saying together with a quote about the propaganda. Would that be okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So like a lot of I mean, your work is I mean, all of your work is basically based off the same thing, whether know this actual person or not, but Paulo, but the basis of the critical revolutionary hip hop pedagogy, for instance, is based off of this. So a lot of it's based off of Paulo Freire, who had this very specific student-centered approach. That it was that basically education is recyclical, which basically goes back to indigenous cultures and definitely African cultures. Like it takes a community to raise a child, but like you center your approach to the students and all this. So so one thing, one quote I always like think about, and especially when I'm making art, it's like that it should talk, like communicate something and also be able to communicate something back to you, and so he says, a quote from him in Pedagogy of the Oppressed, which is like his biggest book. It's authentic liberation, the process of humanization, is not another deposit to be made in men. Liberation is a praxis, the action and reflection of men and women upon their world in order to transform it. Those truly committed to the cause of liberation can accept neither mechanical concepts or consciousness as an empty vessel to be filled, not the use of banking methods of domination, propaganda, slogans, deposits, in the name of liberation. So he speaks a lot about
Yeah.
like not to propagandize to your students, or not to like give them a flat blanket statement of something, and without any context, and without any context to them, kind of thing. So I just wanted to tie that
Excellent.
yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you
Mhm.
so much. And with that, we're going to close out with our video for IBS. Thank you all so much. Be blessed. We can love it again. Visit us at togetherweshall.com.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Peace and
Thank
blessing,
you.
everybody. Have a great night.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you
You
too.
as well.
Bye.
Everyone have a great evening.
You too.
Great evening. Bye.
Peace.
Peace.
I'd rather ease myself. I don't need anyone's help. Acting like somebody else, and you wanna know how I felt just to be put on the shelf. You talking trash, but guess what? I'm doing myself. I'm introducing myself. Nothing that you say that I didn't say to myself. Me introducing myself, expecting somebody else. Time for wasting my time. If you do not see it, I'll cherish your eyes. Take my advice, don't make my lies. You talking lies, keep the sides, and don't got the time to waste. The story is mine to take. It says take time, but I don't got time to wait. The story is mine to make. Don't need to check to validate. Don't need to math to hide my face. Just cause you laugh don't mean that you late. I'm coming to bat. I hope you can take it. Hope that you make it. Stay motivated. Hope that you break the standards you raise. And hope that you real and never been fake. And nowadays, so people are faking. How do I say it? I'm on your playlist. You better play it. Music is lost and I'm here to save it. What a sensation. This indication. When don't care about your love, but I'm abandoned clearly. Don't got the patience there. I'm a minute away from going away and taking vacation. Nah, just getting started here. You can need a tractor to tie me down. Better be a hacker to find me now. You can need a rapper, move faster, and a passion after match me now. Look for the world and watch rotate. I'm losing my mind, but feeling okay. Feel barely alive. Remember those days I'm stuck on the ground. Okay, what they say. Do my best work. I'm in health. Once it's done, then do it yourself. I do not care how anyone felt. This how I am. I'm being myself. I was afraid to let it escape. I gave it a name. Now it was to stay. I gave it a taste. I'm showing the space, and now it's never going away. I've been gone to find myself. Now I'm back and I'm at full health. Where they at when I'm at low health? Yes, they go. They was at full spell. Now I'm back and I'm at my best. That who's out with us, I be yes. You might pass, but I made that test. You might rap, but you just my guess. So the doubters and the haters know I got them like, oh, it sounds sounding good. Now I think I'm on a roll. I give it all I got so that I can let you know I'm already the best. How much farther can I go? I'm showing you the real me before it ain't sure. I'm hoping that you'll feel me so I can give you more. I give it all I got so that I can let you know that this the only option that I can go for. The thing about the prophecy, I've chosen myself. Don't really gotta start with me. I told you myself that if you go apart from me, I'll put you on a shelf and put you with a part of me. I never liked pretend. Here I go again. Best that's ever been. Kill myself. Now I want revenge. Will it ever end? That depends. Guess you never been. Couldn't comprehend. That was then. Now you gotta then. Now I'm at a 10. But I've learned that it hurts and it burns. But I know that I've earned every second that I'm wrecking all the verses that I'm on. Every lyric, every song that you hear it rap along. But you knew it all along. I accept, got regrets, stand apart from the rest. Don't expect nothing less. At my worst, I'm the best. Guess who's next? Bella, I be yes, scream it loud with your chest. Here and now, that's a yes, that's a yes.
Hello, Trey B. That's right. IBS, y'all. Peace and love to everybody. Be blessed. Have a wonderful night. Thank you.